Billionaire misses flight, loses house key. Single father finds it. But who's inside? Celeste Davenport stood motionless at gate 47, her royal blue blazer perfectly pressed despite the chaos of the last 30 minutes. Her reflection in the enormous window showed a beautiful blonde woman with tanned skin and piercing blue eyes that carried more loneliness than anyone her age should bear. At 25, she appeared in every way to be the successful billionaire CEO. Designer clothes, impeccable makeup, the kind of polished appearance that came from having employees who managed every detail of her life. But the woman in the reflection was a stranger to her. Somewhere between inheriting the Mel Brock hotel empire when her father died 3 years ago and surviving a brutal divorce from a man who never loved her, Celeste had lost track of who she really was. She was a collection of other people's expectations, her father's demands for perfection, her board's requirements for constant vigilance, her ex-husband's cruel criticisms of every choice she made. And now she had just missed the most important flight of her life, a merger meeting in Tokyo that had taken 6 months to schedule, representing a deal that would expand Mel Brock into the Asian market and prove to everyone that she was capable of leading the company into the future. All ruined because she had been paralyzed by anxiety in her hotel room this morning, unable to move until it was too late to catch the flight. "Miss Davenport, I'm sorry, but the aircraft doors are sealed," the gate agent repeated, her voice sympathetic. "The next flight to Tokyo departs tomorrow morning at 6. Celeste moved her fingers to touch the silver locket around her neck, a habit she had developed since the divorce. Inside was a faded photograph of her father, taken the summer before cancer stole him from her. She turned away from the gate and began the long walk back through the terminal. Her phone rang constantly. Text messages from board members, emails from her assistant in Tokyo, missed calls from her lawyer. She ignored them all. The merger meeting she was supposed to attend in 12 hours had taken months to schedule, and now she had failed to get to the airport on time. Her ex-husband Marcus would love this. More proof that she was too young, too emotional to run a billion-dollar empire. The thought of Marcus made her walk faster, as if she could outrun the memory of his cruelty. They had divorced 8 months ago after 3 years of a marriage that slowly suffocated her. He wanted her money, her hotels, her name, everything except the woman herself. The divorce had been bitter, contested, and finally settled, only when she paid him far more than he deserved, just to make him disappear from her life. But he hadn't disappeared, had he? He still called, still sent lawyers with new demands, still found ways to insert himself into her business decisions. The board members he had cultivated friendships with during the marriage still questioned her judgment, still suggested that perhaps she had been too hasty in ending things, still insinuated that a woman her age shouldn't be running such a large empire alone. Even in divorce, Marcus had found a way to haunt her. Celeste passed through the doors into the warm September night, the humid New York air sticking to her skin unwelcome. She grabbed her phone to call her driver, then stopped. The thought of the mansion waiting for her, empty, full of her father's ghost and her own regrets, turned her stomach. The housekeeper was off for the week. Her assistant was already in Tokyo dealing with the aftermath of her missed meeting, and the staff she employed came only during business hours. She would enter that house and the silence would swallow her whole, climb the stairs to the master bedroom where her father had died, pass by the office where he had spent hours teaching her to be ruthless in business, through the hallways lined with photographs of a family that no longer existed. She would pour herself a glass of wine, sit in a room she didn't choose, and wonder how her life had become this beautiful, expensive prison. The thought made her want to scream and cry. She decided to walk to the parking lot. The movement, the walk might clear her head, help her think of a way to save the Tokyo deal. She reached into the pocket of her blazer where she kept the key to her house, a brass antique that her father had commissioned when he built the mansion in the Hamptons 20 years ago. It was ornate, impractical in the era of electronic locks, but Celeste had refused to change it. Holding that key was like holding a piece of her father. Her pocket was empty. Panic hit her instantly. She checked everywhere. Other pockets, her purse, dumping everything onto a bench. No key. She had put it in her purse, she was sure. Or had she? That key was irreplaceable, was one of the keepsakes, besides the locket around her neck, of her father. She turned and started running back, while travelers stared at the desperate blonde woman racing through the terminal. 90 meters away, Ryan Walker pushed his cleaning cart through the quiet terminal, his blue uniform stained from a spilled soda near gate 32. Yellow gloves protected his calloused hands that worked hard every day to support his daughter. At 29, he was handsome in a worn way, with kind eyes and quiet strength. Beside him walked Hannah Bell, his 6-year-old daughter with a pink notebook and pencil. She wore a lime green dress and light-up sneakers, blonde braids bouncing as her eyes looked at everything with natural curiosity. She liked to draw what she saw and ask questions about how things worked. "Daddy, why do airplanes have such big wings?" Hannah asked, pointing to a plane visible through the windows. "Because they need to push against the air to lift all that weight," he explained, stopping to empty a trash can. "Bigger wings mean more lift." "Oh," Hannah said, immediately drawing an airplane in her notebook. "That makes sense." He had brought Hannah tonight because his babysitter canceled, and his ex-wife Jennifer was unavailable, as always. Jennifer had left when Hannah was 2 years old, moved to Connecticut with a stockbroker, and saw her daughter maybe twice a year. Ryan had raised Hannah alone, working nights so he could be available during the days. The Melbrook Hotel was understanding about occasional absences, and this airport contract provided extra money for Hannah's college fund. Every dollar mattered when you were raising a child alone on a janitor's salary, but Ryan never complained. Hannah was happy, healthy, and doing well in school. That was all that mattered. "Daddy, look!" Hannah suddenly ran toward something on the floor near a row of seats. She bent down and picked up a brass key that gleamed. Ryan walked over and examined the key she had found. It was old, ornate, and clearly expensive, the kind of key that opened something important. He looked around, but the terminal was completely empty. Most night flights had already departed. "Someone's going to be looking for this," Hannah said, turning the key in her small hands. "It looks very important." "Let's take it to Lost and Found," Ryan suggested, but Hannah shook her head. "What if they come back here looking for it? We should wait a little bit just in case." Ryan looked at the time on his watch. His shift didn't end for another hour, and this area was already clean. "Okay, Belle. Let's wait 15 minutes. If no one comes, we'll turn it in." They sat on a nearby bench. Hannah began drawing the key in her notebook while Ryan grabbed a paperback book he was reading, a thriller he had bought at a thrift store. Reading helped pass the quiet moments of his night shifts. Over the years, Ryan had learned to find happiness in small things. A good book, Hannah's laughter, the satisfaction of a job well done. His life might not look impressive from the outside, but he had made peace with it. He worked hard, treated people with respect, and did his best to raise his daughter. That was enough. "Daddy, someone's coming," Hannah whispered, holding the brass key tightly. "She looks upset." Ryan looked to the side to see a beautiful blonde woman in an expensive blue blazer running toward them, her face flushed, and her eyes desperately scanning the floor. She was clearly wealthy. Celeste's heart almost stopped when she saw the little blonde girl holding her father's key. Relief, followed immediately by embarrassment. She had just run through an airport like a madwoman, and here was her key in a child's hands. "That's mine," she said, trying to catch her breath. "The key. I dropped it. I've been looking everywhere." The little girl looked at her father beside her as if asking permission. He nodded, and she extended the key toward Celeste. "We were waiting for you," the girl said. "I thought you might come back looking for it." The kindness in those words made Celeste's eyes fill with tears. "Thank you so much for finding it," she said, kneeling to take the key from the small, warm hand. "This key is very special to me. It was my father's. Will he be worried that you lost it?" Hannah asked. He passed away," Celeste said softly. "But yes, I think he would have been worried. He loved this key. It's unique. I'm sorry your daddy died," Hannah said with a child's sympathy. "That must make you very sad." Celeste nodded, not trusting her voice. Celeste looked at the father, really seeing him for the first time. He was handsome despite the worn uniform and tired eyes. There was something vaguely familiar about him, though she couldn't pinpoint why. "Thank you both," Celeste said, standing up and brushing off her jean shorts. She grabbed her wallet. "Please, let me give you a reward. I know it's late and you went above and beyond." His expression changed, something that looked like hurt flashing across his face. "We don't need payment for doing what's right, ma'am. Hannah found your key, and we're glad you found it." There was a quiet dignity in his refusal that made Celeste feel small. She had insulted him somehow, reduced his kindness to a transaction. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to thank you properly. You did thank us, he said simply. That's enough. Hannah tugged on her father's sleeve. Can I ask the pretty lady one more question? Just one more, Belle, then we need to finish work. The child turned those green eyes back to Celeste. Why were you running at the gate earlier? We saw you watching the plane leave. You looked very sad. Celeste was surprised that this observant child had noticed her. I missed my flight, she explained. An important meeting in Tokyo. Sometimes when we're in a hurry, we make mistakes. My teacher says it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. Celeste smiled. Your teacher sounds smart. What's your name? Hannah Belle Walker. I'm 6 years old. What's yours? I'm Celeste. Then she extended her hand to Ryan. Celeste Davenport. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. He had recognized the name. Everyone in the hotel industry knew Mel Brock, but instead of the usual calculating interest, she saw something that looked almost like sadness. Ryan Walker, he said, taking her hand briefly. His grip was strong, calloused. And you've met Hannah Belle. Belle, Celeste repeated. And suddenly she was 13 years old, sitting on a Hamptons beach during the best summer of her life. There was a boy that summer who worked at the marina, and they had spent 3 perfect months talking about dreams. His name was Ryan, and he called her Belle. She studied him more carefully, and her heart raced. The eyes were the same, even though the face was older. The way he stood, his voice, it was familiar because she had memorized it 13 years ago. Ryan? She whispered. Ryan Walker from the Hamptons? From the marina? He had clearly recognized her the moment she introduced herself, but now something in his expression closed off. That was a long time ago, Miss Davenport. We were different people. You worked on boats, she continued. You taught me to sail. We used to meet at the lighthouse at sunset and talk for hours. You wanted to be a marine biologist, and I wanted to escape my father's expectations, and then summer ended, Ryan said calmly, looking at Hannah, who was watching this exchange with confused curiosity. You went back to your world, and I stayed in mine. That's how it works. There was no bitterness in his voice, only acceptance, which somehow made things worse. Celeste felt heat rise to her cheeks. She was 13, and when her father discovered she was spending time with the marina boy, he forbade her from seeing Ryan. Eventually, she had convinced herself it had been a childhood crush, nothing more. But standing here now, looking at the man that boy had become, she wanted their friendship back. I tried to find you, she said softly. After my father died, I went back to the Hamptons, went to the marina, but no one knew where you had gone. I joined the Marines right after that summer, Ryan said. Did 4 years, then came back and worked construction. Met my wife, had Hannah, got divorced. He gestured to his cleaning cart with a slight smile. Not exactly the marine biology dream, but life doesn't always go according to plan. I'm divorced too, Celeste found herself saying. 8 months now. Something shifted in Ryan's expression, a softening around his eyes. I'm sorry to hear that. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of 13 years pressing down on them. Hannah had wandered a few meters away to look at the departure screens. Your key, Ryan said finally, nodding toward her hand. You should go home, it's late. Celeste looked at the brass key, then back at Ryan. A wild impulse took hold of her. Come with me. What? Ryan's eyebrows rose. Come with me, she repeated. Both of you. I missed my flight. Come to my house. Let me make dinner for you. I don't want to be alone tonight. Ryan was already shaking his head. Miss Davenport. Celeste. Or Belle, if you remember that name. Celeste, he said carefully. Thank you for the invitation, but it wouldn't be appropriate at this hour of night. Celeste interrupted. Please, just for tonight. As old friends. She could see him waver, see the boy she had known that summer fighting with the cautious man he had become. Finally, he looked at Hannah. Belle, what do you think? Should we accept Miss Davenport's invitation? Hannah looked between them, sensing that something important was happening, even though she didn't understand it. Is your house cool? She asked Celeste. Very cool. It has a big library with lots of books, and the ocean view from the windows is beautiful. Hannah's eyes lit up at the mention of books. Can I see the library? Of course, Celeste promised. Then okay, Hannah decided with childhood's simple logic. Ryan took a deep breath. Okay, We'll go, but only for a few hours. Hannah has school tomorrow. Thank you, Celeste whispered. She gave him her address in the Hamptons, watching his eyes widen when he realized where she lived. The massive property on the cliff, the one everyone in town knew, but few had entered. I'll finish my shift and meet you there in about an hour, Ryan said. See you soon. Celeste walked toward the exit. Behind her, she heard Hannah ask, Daddy, did you know that lady when you were little? And Ryan's murmured response, a long time ago, Belle. In another life. The drive to the Hamptons normally took 2 hours, but at this late hour with light traffic, Celeste made it in 90 minutes. Her hands gripped the steering wheel of her silver Mercedes too tightly. Her mind spun with questions she couldn't answer. What had she just done? Invite a near stranger and his daughter to her house in the middle of the night? Yes, she had known Ryan once, but that had been 13 years ago. A lifetime in many ways. People change. Circumstances change. The boy she knew that summer might have nothing in common with the man pushing a cleaning cart through an airport, but even as those thoughts spun in her mind, her heart argued back with something stronger. She had seen the way he looked at his daughter, with pure, selfless love that asked for nothing in return. His refusal of money, the way he treated kindness as something normal instead of transactional, and she had felt for the first time a genuine human connection that wasn't based on her bank account, her last name, or what she could do for someone. Maybe that was enough. Maybe one night feeling like a real person instead of a corporate figurehead was worth the risk. The mansion loomed ahead as she entered the driveway, all the windows dark and rooms empty. Celeste had inherited this place along with everything else when her father died. The hotels, the investments, the impossible responsibility of maintaining an empire built on one man's relentless ambition. But this house had always felt more like a burden than a gift. The house was a monument to her father's success. Every room carefully designed, every piece of furniture selected for maximum impact, every surface polished to reflect an image of perfection. After he died, she kept everything exactly as he had left it, partly because the board of directors and estate lawyers advised her not to make dramatic changes during the transition period, partly because she was too paralyzed by grief and responsibility to think about interior decorating, but mostly because she had been unable to truly claim this space as her own. Changing things would mean acknowledging that he was really gone, that she was truly alone, that the relationship they had, complicated and often painful, was finished forever with so many things unsaid. She parked in the circular driveway and sat for a moment looking at the imposing facade. 16 bedrooms, 22 bathrooms, a commercial kitchen, a library that would make most universities jealous, staff quarters that sat empty most of the time, Olympic pool, tennis courts, and one very lonely woman rattling around all that expensive space. Celeste entered through the front door, turning on lights as she went. The foyer was enormous. Marble floors imported from Italy, a crystal chandelier that cost more than most people's houses, sweeping double staircases leading to the upper floors. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. The echo meant she was alone. Again. Always. She walked to the kitchen, a commercial-grade space with professional appliances that had barely been used since her father's personal chef retired 6 months after his death. The chef had cooked elaborate meals for business dinners and board meetings, but never anything as simple as a grilled cheese sandwich or chicken soup. This kitchen was designed to impress people, not to feed a family. Celeste opened the refrigerator and almost laughed at the pathetic, sparse contents. 3 bottles of champagne she would never open, sparkling water she drank out of habit, some artisanal cheese that was probably expired, and Greek yogurt that had definitely seen better days. This was the refrigerator of someone who ate most of her meals at restaurants or hotel banquets, someone who had forgotten what it meant to actually live in a house instead of just occupying it. She grabbed her phone and ordered delivery from the only place she knew would still be open at this hour, Joe's Diner, a local institution her father loved. He would go there sometimes late at night, she had heard from staff, when the weight of running Mel Brock became too heavy. He would order a burger and coffee and sit in a corner booth reading the newspaper like a normal person instead of a billionaire. She had never understood that impulse when he was alive, but she understood now. Sometimes you just needed to be somewhere that didn't require you to be someone special. While waiting for the food, she walked through the house, really looking at it for the first time in months. Every room held memories she was avoiding. The office where her father taught her about the hotel business. The master bedroom where he died, slowly, while cancer destroyed him from the inside out. She was 22 when he died, fresh out of college with an art history degree he tolerated. Art doesn't build empires, Celeste, he had said more times than she could count. Numbers build. Strategy builds. Ruthlessness builds. He had prepared her to run Mel Brock since she was old enough to walk, taking her to board meetings when other kids were at birthday parties, teaching her to read balance sheets when her friends were learning to read chapter books, showing her the ruthless decision-making needed to survive in the hotel industry. Business isn't personal, he would say. The moment you let emotion cloud your judgment, you lose. And then he died, and left her with an empire she never truly wanted, surrounded by board members who said, "Your father would never have approved of this expansion. Your father handled labor disputes differently. Your father believed in traditional management structures." The worst part was Marcus, who came into her life shortly after her father's death. She met him at a charity gala 6 months after her mourning period, when she was still raw and lost and desperately seeking any kind of anchor in the storm. Marcus seemed perfect, Harvard-educated from a wealthy Connecticut family, interested in the hotel business, charming in that effortless way some people have. Her father's friends approved of him. The board members praised her choice. For the first time, everyone agreed she had made the right decision. She should have known better. She should have seen the red flags. The way he always steered conversations back to business. How he knew more about Mel Brock's finances than seemed appropriate for someone she had just met. The calculation behind his charming smile. But she was so lonely, so desperate for someone to share the burden, so starved for affection after years of emotional distance from her father. She confused Marcus's interest in her company with interest in her. The marriage had been a slow-motion disaster. Marcus wanted control of the business, of her schedule, of her board votes, of every decision she made. He undermined her authority in meetings, questioned her judgment in front of staff, made her feel small and incompetent, and lucky that someone like him had agreed to marry someone as inexperienced as her. When she fought back, he weaponized her grief. "You're still not thinking clearly about your father's death. Maybe you should take some time off. Let me handle things." When she succeeded, he diminished it. "The board really made that decision. You just signed off." The divorce had been brutal. Marcus had fought on every point, trying to claim half of everything despite the ironclad prenuptial agreement her father's lawyers had insisted on. He dragged her through depositions where his lawyers insinuated she was mentally unstable, emotionally unfit, possibly addicted to prescription medications. He leaked stories to business publications suggesting she was running Mel Brock into the ground. He turned mutual friends into informants, board members into spies, every aspect of her life into a battlefield. The settlement cost her millions more than the prenup required, but she paid gladly just to make him go away. Or so she thought. But Marcus wasn't the type to simply disappear. He still called with concerns about her business decisions. He still had allies on the board who reported back to him. He still found ways to insert himself into her life, like a toxic presence she couldn't completely cleanse no matter how hard she tried. And now she was here, in this huge, empty house, having just missed a meeting that could have proved to everyone, to Marcus, to the board, to herself, that she was capable of leading Mel Brock into the future. Instead, she froze, panicked, failed, again. A knock at the door pulled her from these dark thoughts. She checked her phone. Had an hour really passed already? She opened the door to find Ryan standing there in jeans and a worn leather jacket, Hannah beside him in a pink hoodie, her eyes wide as she took in the enormous house. "Hi," Celeste said, suddenly nervous. "Come in. The food should arrive any minute." Ryan entered carefully, as if afraid his shoes would dirty the pristine floors. He had clearly changed out of his work uniform, though his jeans were faded and his boots scuffed. Hannah, less inhibited, immediately began looking around in awe. "Wow, your house is so big," she exclaimed, spinning in a circle in the foyer. "How many bedrooms do you have?" "Too many," Celeste said honestly. "I don't even use most of them. Come on, let me show you the library." She led them through the house to her father's library, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with first editions and rare volumes. Hannah immediately began examining the spines, her small fingers sliding along the books. "Can I touch them?" she asked. looking at Ryan for permission. If Miss Celeste says it's okay, Ryan said. Please call me Celeste. And yes, you can touch them. Books are meant to be read. Celeste grabbed an illustrated copy of Alice in Wonderland. This was always my favorite. As Hannah settled into a leather armchair with the book, Celeste and Ryan stood in awkward silence. Finally, Ryan spoke. This is quite a place. I remember seeing it from the water when I worked at the marina. Never imagined I'd actually be inside it. It's too big, Celeste said honestly. It's a house for a family and I live here alone. Sometimes I think I hear my father's footsteps in the hallways. Why don't you move? Ryan asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, that's none of my business. No, it's a fair question. Celeste sank into one of the leather armchairs. I guess I keep thinking that if I change things, I'll lose the last connection to my father. He built this house, filled it with these books, chose every piece of furniture. Changing it feels like erasing him. Ryan sat across from her. I understand that. After my mother died, my father kept her garden exactly the way she had left it for 3 years. Wouldn't let anything change. Then one day he realized he was living in a shrine instead of a house. Sometimes holding on too tight means we can't move forward. When did you become so insightful? Celeste asked softly. When life gave me no choice but to learn, Ryan said with a slight smile. When you work nights cleaning floors, you have a lot of time to think. How you respond to things, how you treat people, whether you let circumstances define you or you define yourself despite them. He shrugged. It's not profound maybe, but it helps me keep going on difficult days. Before Celeste could respond, the doorbell rang. She went to answer it, grateful for the interruption. The delivery had arrived, bags full of burgers, fries, milkshakes, and pie. She brought everything to the kitchen and called Hannah, who came running with the Alice book still clutched in her hands. Can I keep reading while we eat? Hannah asked. Absolutely, Celeste said. She had ordered a strawberry milkshake, remembering that she herself loved them at that age. They ate at the kitchen island, a strangely domestic scene. Hannah asked questions between bites about the house, about Celeste's hotels, about whether she had any pets. Celeste found herself laughing, charmed by this curious child. Ryan was quieter, but Celeste could feel him watching her, perhaps comparing the woman she had become with the girl he knew. She wanted to ask so many questions, about his time in the Marines, about his marriage and divorce, about how he ended up cleaning floors instead of studying marine life. But with Hannah there, she held back. After they finished eating, Hannah announced she was tired. Ryan checked his watch. We should go. It's almost 1 in the morning, and Belle has school in a few hours. Stay, Celeste heard herself saying. Please, I have guest rooms all made up. It's a long drive back to the city at this hour and Hannah's exhausted. Ryan started to refuse, but Hannah tugged on his sleeve. Daddy, I'm really tired, and Miss Celeste has that library. Hannah, please, just this once? Ryan looked at Celeste and something passed between them, a recognition of the strangeness of this situation, but also a willingness to see where it might lead. Okay, he said finally, but just for tonight. We'll need to leave early for school. Celeste led them upstairs to a guest suite, a large bedroom with an attached bathroom, and a smaller adjoining room perfect for Hannah. She found pajamas that were too big for a 6-year-old, but would work. These are like a princess dress, Hannah declared, putting on the oversized silk pajamas and twirling. She hugged Celeste impulsively. Thank you for letting us stay. Thank you for finding my key, Celeste whispered back. After Hannah was tucked into bed with the Alice book, Celeste and Ryan stood in the hallway. The house was quiet around them. I should let you rest, Celeste said. But if you're not too tired, would you like to see the terrace? The ocean view is beautiful at night. Ryan, sure. I don't think I could sleep right now anyway. They walked through the house to the back terrace, a massive stone patio overlooking the Atlantic. The moon was almost full, casting silver light over the water. Celeste crossed her arms against the cool breeze. I used to sit here with my father, she said quietly. He would tell me stories about building this house, about his dreams for Mel Brock. Do you regret the road not taken? Celeste asked. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that summer hadn't ended the way it did? He turned to look at her. For a long time, yes. But then I think about Hannah, how she wouldn't exist if I had made different choices. And even though the marriage failed, I got the best thing in my life. So no, I don't regret it anymore. We're not children anymore, Celeste said softly. No, Ryan agreed. But we're still from different worlds. They sat on the terrace furniture, and Celeste asked him to tell her about the last 13 years. He spoke about the Marines, about the structure it gave him, about meeting Jennifer and thinking he had found love, only to realize they wanted different things, about Hannah's birth and how he promised his baby girl he would be everything she needed, about the divorce and the struggle to make enough money to give Hannah the life she deserved. In turn, Celeste told him about boarding school and college, about her father's illness and the terrible months watching him fade, about meeting Marcus and confusing his interest in the business with interest in her, about the isolation of running a company where everyone wanted something from her, and no one simply wanted to know her. They talked until the sky began to lighten, darkness giving way to the soft grays and pinks of dawn. Celeste couldn't remember the last time she had talked so openly with anyone. Finally, Ryan stood up. I should check on Hannah. She'll be waking up soon. Celeste stood too, suddenly not wanting him to leave. Ryan, thank you. For coming tonight. For staying. For listening. Thank you for trusting me enough to invite us. He paused. You're not as alone as you think, Belle. You were just looking for connection in all the wrong places. Where are the right places? He smiled. Right in front of you, in people who show up, who are honest, who see you for who you are. He turned to go inside, then stopped. That key you were desperate to find? Maybe losing it wasn't an accident. Maybe you needed to lose something to find what you really needed. With that, he went back into the house, leaving Celeste alone on the terrace as the sun began to rise. She looked at her father's brass key still in her pocket and wondered if Ryan was right. When Celeste finally went back inside, she found Ryan and Hannah in the kitchen. Hannah was wearing her yellow dress from yesterday, looking fresh and animated despite the late night. Miss Celeste, Daddy says we have to leave soon, but can I see just one more book? Of course, Celeste said, taking her back to the library. Hannah chose a leather-bound copy of Treasure Island. Can I borrow it? Hannah asked hopefully. Celeste looked at the book, one of her father's favorites, and made a decision. You can keep it. Consider it a gift. Hannah's eyes widened. Really? But it's so special. That's why I want you to have it. Hannah hugged Celeste tightly. Thank you. Ryan appeared in the doorway. Belle, we need to go. School starts soon. But as they were walking toward the front door, Celeste heard something that made her freeze. A voice coming from deeper in the house. A familiar voice that made her blood run cold. Celeste? I saw your car in the driveway. We need to talk about the deal. You can't just ignore my calls. Marcus entered the foyer, and Celeste's heart stopped. Her ex-husband looked exactly as always. Expensive suit, perfect hair, and eyes that held calculated cruelty. But what shocked her was that he was there. How had he gotten in? Then she noticed the key in his hand. Another brass antique, identical to hers. How do you have that? She whispered. I had all the locks changed. You changed the front lock, but the service entrance still has the old locks. I've been using it to come and go for weeks. Checking on you, making sure my investment is being managed properly. Ryan stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Celeste. I think you need to leave. Marcus looked at Ryan for the first time, his expression changing to contempt. And who are you? The new pool boy? I'm someone who respects boundaries, Ryan said calmly, which you clearly don't. Oh, Celeste, Marcus said with false sympathy. Still so naive. And our divorce settlement is still being negotiated. My lawyers found several issues we need to discuss. The settlement is final, Celeste said, her voice trembling. We signed the papers 3 months ago. Papers can be contested, especially when there's evidence you weren't in your right mind when you signed them. Marcus's smile widened. All those therapy sessions after your father died? Your therapist's notes suggest depression. That casts doubt on your competence. Celeste felt the room spin. He had been planning this for months. Hannah, who had been holding her book silently, suddenly spoke. You're being mean to Miss Celeste. You should go away. Marcus's attention turned to the little girl. And there's a child here? Celeste, what kind of life are you living? We should go, Ryan said quietly to Celeste. All of us, right now. But Celeste straightened her spine. Marcus was trying to control her, intimidate her, make her feel small. She was tired of letting him have that power. No, she said firmly. Hannah and Ryan are my guests. You're not. You need to leave immediately or I'm calling the police. On what grounds? Marcus laughed. I have a key. Trespassing. Harassment. Violation of a restraining order I'm filing this morning. Celeste grabbed her phone. You have 60 seconds to leave. Something in her voice must have convinced Marcus she was serious. His expression darkened. This isn't over, Celeste. Not even close. You think you can just move on? The hotel empire should have been mine. Everything your father built should have been mine, Celeste said simply. Goodbye, Marcus. Then he was gone, the door slamming behind him. Celeste stood frozen, her hand shaking. Ryan gently took her phone. Are you okay? No, Celeste said honestly. He's been coming into my house while I was sleeping. He was here. I thought I was free of him. Hannah walked over and took Celeste's hand. You need new locks. Really good ones. You're right, Celeste said, looking at this sweet child. I need a lot of new things. Ryan's expression was somber. He's dangerous, Belle. You need that restraining order, new locks, maybe security. I'll arrange it, Celeste promised, all of it today. But then she looked at Ryan and Hannah, these two people who had wandered into her life by accident. Please don't leave. Not yet. I know you have school and work, but I don't want to be alone right now. Ryan looked torn. Hannah has school. I'll take her, Celeste said impulsively. I'll drive her to school and you can rest. In that fancy car? Hannah pointed to the Mercedes. Really? Really? Celeste promised. She looked at Ryan. Please. Ryan hesitated. Okay. She needs to be at PS 122 in Queens by 8:30. We'll be there at 8:15, Celeste said. 30 minutes later, Celeste was driving through morning traffic with Hannah in the passenger seat, chattering animatedly about everything she saw. Your car smells nice, Hannah observed. And these seats are so soft. Daddy's car smells like old coffee and the seats have duct tape, but I love it because it's his. What kind of car does your dad have? A blue Ford pickup. It's pretty old, but Daddy takes good care of it because we can't buy a new one. Celeste glanced at this honest 6-year-old. Your dad works very hard. I know, Hannah said. Sometimes he's really tired, but he never complains. He says being a good dad is the most important job in the world. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Hannah asked, Do you like my dad? Celeste almost lost control of the car. What? We were friends a long time ago. But you looked at him like you were happy to see him, Hannah insisted. And he smiled at you. Not his tired smile, but a real one. Hannah, it's complicated. That's what adults always say, Hannah observed. Celeste pulled up in front of PS 122 with 10 minutes to spare. She walked Hannah to the entrance, drawing curious looks from other parents in their expensive clothes. Hannah hugged her quickly and ran into the school building. Celeste stood there for a long moment, watching until the little girl disappeared. When she returned to the Hamptons, she found Ryan sitting on the terrace with coffee, looking out at the ocean. He had showered and changed back into his work clothes. Did she get there on time? He asked. 8:15 as promised. Celeste sat beside him. She's a wonderful child. I know. She scares me sometimes with how observant she is. They sat in silence watching the waves. Finally, Ryan spoke. What are you going to do about your ex-husband? Everything you suggested. Restraining order, new locks, security. My lawyer's going to be busy. She turned to look at him. Thank you for being there this morning. You would have handled it, Ryan said. You're stronger than you think. Then stop running from him, Ryan said. Face him in court, shut down his challenges, make it clear you're done being his victim. Fear only has power when we avoid it. Face it head on and it loses that power. Is that from a book? No, that's from experience, Ryan said with a slight smile. Celeste found herself smiling too. Ryan, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really agree to come here last night? Ryan was quiet for a long time. Because for 13 years I wondered what happened to you, if you were happy. And when I saw you at the airport looking lost, I remembered that girl who used to meet me at the lighthouse, the one who dreamed of Paris, the one who made me feel like everything was possible. I remember her too, Celeste whispered. Sometimes I miss her. Ryan stood up. I should go. I have to pick up Hannah from school this afternoon. Wait. Celeste stood too, her heart pounding. Come back tonight, bring Hannah, I'll order dinner, just... Please don't let this be the last time. I know it's complicated, but last night was the first time in years I felt like myself. The first time I talked to someone who sees me as more than just a bank account." She took a deep breath. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. "We'll come back tonight. But Belle, you need to understand something." Ryan smiled. "See you tonight, Belle. Around 7? 7 is perfect." She walked him to his pickup and watched him drive away. The morning sun was warm on her face, and for the first time in 3 years she felt something that had been missing: hope. But as she turned to go back inside, her phone rang. Her lawyer. "Celeste, we have a problem. Marcus filed a motion to freeze your assets pending a review of the settlement. He's claiming you defrauded him by hiding hotel properties. It's absurd, but he got a judge to issue a temporary order. We need to fight this immediately." Celeste closed her eyes. She thought she was free. She thought the divorce was final. "File whatever we need to file," she said. "Do whatever's necessary." She hung up and went back into the house. The beautiful empty house that suddenly felt like a prison again. The brass key was heavy in her pocket, but then she thought about Ryan and Hannah, about how they showed up exactly when she needed them, about the possibility that maybe the universe was giving her a second chance. She touched the silver locket around her neck, the one with her father's photograph, and made a silent promise. She would fight Marcus. She would reclaim her life, and she would be brave enough to see where this unexpected connection might lead. After all, she had spent years being afraid. It was time to try something different. It was time to be brave. A few days later, the restraining order had been filed and approved within 48 hours of Marcus's uninvited appearance. The locks had been changed, all of them this time, including the service entrance. A security system had been installed with cameras covering every entrance to the property. Her lawyer had filed aggressive motions to shut down Marcus's attempts to freeze her assets, and the judge had sided with Celeste, calling Marcus's allegations frivolous and harassing. The Tokyo deal had been saved through video conferencing, proving to the board she could handle pressure. The expansion into Asia was moving forward. Everything was falling into place professionally, but personally Celeste felt lonelier than ever. She had called Ryan twice. The first time he answered but said he was at work and would call back. He never did. The second time, it went straight to voicemail. She left a message saying she wanted to thank him properly for everything, but he didn't respond. Maybe he had second thoughts about getting involved with someone like her, a woman whose ex-husband invaded her home, whose life was a constant legal and corporate battlefield. Maybe he had decided that that summer crush from 13 years ago wasn't worth the complications of her current reality. She couldn't blame him if he had. It was a Saturday afternoon when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Celeste wasn't expecting anyone. Her housekeeper didn't work weekends, and she had stopped scheduling social commitments months ago. She opened the door to find Ryan standing there in jeans and a flannel shirt, looking nervous. "Hi," he said. "Sorry I didn't call back. I kept wanting to, but..." He stopped, running his hand through his hair. "Can I come in?" "Of course," Celeste said, stepping aside. "Where's Hannah?" "With Jennifer for the weekend. It's her custody time twice a year." He entered the foyer, looking around as if seeing it for the first time, though he had been there before. "I wanted to talk to you alone." Celeste's heart raced. "Let's go to the terrace," she said quietly. They walked through the house in silence. Outside, the October afternoon was cool and clear, the ocean sparkling under the autumn sun. They sat in the same chairs they had occupied that first night. "I need to tell you something," Ryan said. "About that summer 13 years ago." Celeste turned to look at him, surprised. "Okay. Your father. He came to the marina, found me, and explained that I needed to stay away from you. He offered me money, but I didn't take it. Then he offered me something else." Ryan pulled an old worn envelope from his jacket pocket. "He gave me this. Made me promise not to open it until you were running Mel Brock." Celeste took the envelope with trembling hands, her father's handwriting on the front. "For Celeste, when she's ready." Inside was a letter and a photograph. The photo showed her father next to his blue Harley, smiling, really smiling, in a way she rarely saw. The letter was short. "Celeste, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you've met Ryan again. I always knew you would. Some connections can't be broken no matter how hard we try. I was wrong to send you away that summer. I was wrong about many things. But more than that, the choice is yours. Choose happiness, not just success. Choose love, not just security. Choose the life I was too afraid to live. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this while I was alive. I'm sorry for so many things, but I'm proud of you. You're the best daughter I ever had. Dad. Celeste couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Her father knew. He understood what he was doing to her, what he was sacrificing, and he was sorry. Celeste stood up, walked to the edge of the terrace, and allowed herself to cry. Really cry, for the first time since her father died. All the pain she had been holding in, all the anger at his emotional distance, all the love she never got to express, it all came out. And Ryan stood behind her, not touching, just present, giving her space to finally feel everything she had been avoiding. When the tears finally stopped, Celeste turned back to him. Why did you wait 3 weeks to tell me this? Because I needed to figure out if I was coming back because of a letter from your father or because of who you are now. Ryan stepped closer. And I realized it doesn't matter. That summer 13 years ago, I fell in love with a girl who wanted to run away to Paris and paint. Last month I met a woman who's fighting to build her own life. Both are you, Belle, and I want to see where this leads if you do. I do, Celeste said. Besides, Hannah gave me her approval. She said, Daddy, Miss Celeste looked very sad when we left. I think she needs us. Celeste laughed through her tears. She's not wrong. Ryan reached out and took her hand. So here's what I'm proposing. We take this slow. We see each other when we can. We figure out if what we feel is real or just nostalgia for a summer that ended too soon. And we promise to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. I can do that, Celeste said. Good. Ryan pulled her into a hug, and Celeste allowed herself to lean into his strength, into the simple comfort of being held by someone who saw her as more than her last name or her bank account. They stood there for a long time, watching the ocean, not needing to fill the silence with words. 2 months later, Celeste stood in the garage looking at the Rangoon red Ford Mustang, 1964-1973, remembering her first kiss with Ryan with nostalgia. Hannah opened the door and sat down, sketching in her notebook. Celeste looked at the open garage door. Ryan was waiting in the driver's seat at the road beyond, at the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Ready, he said. And she was. Writer's wish. God bless you and your family. Like and subscribe. Thank you for listening to this story made with love.